There is a document sitting inside the office of the comptroller of the currency right now that almost no one in the retail crypto market is reading. It is not a tweet. It is not a press release. It is an application. And the moment a stamp is placed on the final page of that file, the entire conversation about XRP changes. Not the price first, the plumbing. And once the plumbing changes, the price has no choice but to follow. Most people watching the XRP chart this week are watching the wrong screen. They are watching candles. They should be watching paperwork. Because what is happening in Washington is not a rally. It is not a dip. It is a quiet rewrite of who is allowed to settle dollars in the United States. And a private company that retail still misunderstands has just put its name on the list. This story is not being explained to retail investors the way it should be. So today, we are going to explain it properly.
And make sure to like and subscribe and drop a comment below with your opinion on XRP and watch until the end, because the final minutes reveal why July 13th could change everything. Welcome back. On this channel, we do not chase candles, we do not chase headlines, and we do not chase the loudest voice in the room. We chase structure. Today, we decode what a national banking charter actually means for Ripple, for RLUSD, and for the asset that sits underneath both of them, XRP. Pour the coffee. Sit down. This one matters. Let's start with the hard truth. 95% of people watching the XRP story right now believe a banking charter is just a regulatory checkbox, a formality, a nice headline. They are wrong. And the reason they are wrong is because they do not understand what a national charter actually unlocks. A national banking charter, issued through the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, is not a license to operate. Ripple already operates. It is a license to touch the rails. The Federal Reserve Settlement Infrastructure, FedWire, FedNow, the Master Account System, these are not open networks. They are gated infrastructure that only chartered institutions can access directly. Everyone else has to rent access through a partner bank, and renting access means slower settlement, higher fees, and a permanent ceiling on what you can build. The moment Ripple holds a charter, that ceiling disappears. Here is what most retail investors do not understand. Stablecoins like RLUSD are not just digital dollars. They are claims on reserves, and where those reserves sit determines what the stablecoin can legally do. If RLUSD's reserves sit at a Federal Reserve master account, not at a commercial bank, then RLUSD is no longer a private dollar substitute. It becomes something closer to a programmable extension of the U.S. monetary base. David Schwartz has been hinting at this architecture for years. Brad Garlinghouse has been positioning Ripple toward it through every acquisition. Hidden Road, Standard Custody, Medico. These were not random purchases. They were the assembly of a bank in everything but name. The charter is simply the cover page being attached to a manuscript that has already been written. And underneath all of it sits XRP. Not as a marketing asset, not as a speculative ticker, as the bridge liquidity that allows the entire architecture to settle in seconds, across borders, without correspondent banks, without SWIFT, without the legacy plumbing that costs the global economy hundreds of billions every year in friction. Now it makes sense why the institutions stopped talking and started buying. Let's do the math. The numbers most retail investors refuse to sit with. FedWire processes roughly $4.3 trillion in settlement volume per day. That is not a typo. Per day. The annual throughput exceeds $1 quadrillion when you include all U.S. interbank settlement layers. Cross-border payments alone, the segment Ripple targets directly, move approximately $150 trillion per year. Foreign exchange spot markets settle $7.5 trillion every 24 hours. Now consider the supply side. XRP has a fixed maximum of 100 billion tokens. Roughly 55 to 57 billion are in circulation. The rest sits in escrow, released at 1 billion per month. and historically, the vast majority of each release is relocked. Effective free-float liquid supply, after exchange reserves, lost tokens, and institutional custody lockups, is materially smaller than the headline number suggests. Here is the equation that the retail crowd ignores. If XRP captures even 1% of the $150 trillion annual cross-border payments market as bridge liquidity, you are routing $1.5 trillion in transactional value through an asset with a fully diluted market cap that, at current prices, sits at a fraction of that flow. That is not a price prediction. That is a liquidity equation. Because here is the mechanic most viewers miss. Bridge liquidity efficiency improves as price rises. If you need to move $1 million and XRP trades at $2, you need 500,000 tokens to bridge the transfer. And moving that many tokens creates slippage. If XRP trades at $100, the same transfer needs 10,000 tokens. Less slippage, tighter spreads. More efficient settlement, not less. This means the system has a built-in mathematical preference for a higher XRP price. The institutions building on this rail are not hoping the price rises. They need it to. This isn't speculation. It's a design requirement. While retail traders argue about candles, look at what the silent actors are actually doing. BNY Mellon, custodian of $52 trillion in assets, the largest custodian on the planet, is the official reserve custodian for RLUSD. That is not a small detail. BNY does not lend its name to projects it has not stress-tested at the highest institutional level. Standard Chartered has been an active partner on Ripple's payment corridors. HSBC has integrated with Ripple-aligned tokenization infrastructure. Santander remains in the network. SBI Holdings in Japan continues to drive Asian adoption at scale. On the acquisition side, Hidden Road processes roughly $3 trillion annually in prime brokerage flow. Ripple did not buy them for branding. They bought them for the settlement layer that prime brokers need. A layer that, post-charter, can route through RLUSD and XRP without external intermediaries. The ETF flows tell their own story. Spot XRP ETF approval has shifted the institutional access map permanently. Filings from Franklin Templeton, Bitwise, Grayscale, and several others continue to accumulate assets under management. BlackRock's posture toward tokenized real-world assets, articulated repeatedly by Larry Fink, points directly at the kind of infrastructure Ripple is building. Ask yourself a brutal question. Does a custodian holding $52 trillion attach itself to a stablecoin issuer without absolute legal certainty? Does a prime broker handling $3 trillion in annual flow let itself be acquired without confidence in the regulatory pathway? They do not gamble. They position. The retail behavior right now is to stare at the price and feel disappointed. The institutional behavior right now is to sign NDAs, allocate custody capacity, and quietly absorb liquidity from exchanges that retail will not notice until it is gone. The charter review process at the OCC is not a single event. It is a sequence. And each step in that sequence is a catalyst. First, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Framework continues to advance through legislative finalization, providing the statutory clarity that institutional treasuries require before allocating at scale. Second, the OCC's review of Ripple's national charter application moves through standard timelines, with peer comparisons available from the Anchorage digital precedent. Third, the Genius Act and parallel stablecoin frameworks tighten requirements in a way that advantages issuers with direct Fed access, a category Ripple is positioning itself to enter. Layered on top, Japan's Financial Services Agency continues to refine its digital asset reclassifications. The Bank of Japan and other central banks are openly discussing tokenized settlement frameworks. The IMF has published multiple papers on bridge asset architectures for cross-border settlement. Each of these is a green light. None of them individually moves the price tomorrow. Collectively, they remove every remaining legal and structural barrier to institutional XRP deployment at scale. When the charter is approved, The wait-and-see capital becomes the all-in capital, not because of hype, because of mandate. Many institutional allocators are legally restricted from holding assets that do not meet specific regulatory thresholds. The charter clears those thresholds. The fuse is already lit. The question is only how long it burns. We are entering the phase of the cycle that retail consistently misreads. The phase where price feels boring and structure feels invisible, which is precisely when scarcity is being engineered underneath the surface. Exchange reserves of XRP have been trending toward multi-year lows. On-chain forensic data from CryptoQuant and Glassnode shows steady outflows from custodial exchange wallets into cold storage and institutional vaults. Once a token enters a multi-signature institutional vault tied to a custody mandate, it does not come back to market for a 10% move. It is committed, often for years. Combine that with the supply mechanics. Fixed cap of 100 billion. Escrow releases that are largely relocked. ODL corridor consumption that consistently pulls liquid float out of exchange order books. The math is unambiguous. Liquid supply is shrinking, while institutional demand is preparing to enter through newly opened regulatory doors. There is a window right now where XRP is still accessible to retail at whole token quantities. That window does not stay open forever. Once the charter is granted and institutional flows route through the new rails, the price discovery mechanism shifts permanently. Retail's role in setting the price diminishes. Institutional bid depth dominates. This is how the great priced-out events happen in every cycle, not with a dramatic announcement. With a quiet door closing while everyone is looking the other way. I know watching the chart right now is uncomfortable. The volatility is real. The headlines designed to shake conviction are real. The temptation to capitulate after months of patience is real. But as an analyst, my job is to distinguish noise from signal. And right now, the noise is loud precisely because the signal is significant. Suppression and accumulation tend to look identical from the outside. Boring price action during a structural build-out is not a failure of the thesis. It is the expression of the thesis. The architects of this system need quiet. Volatility scares away the institutional onboarding they are working to complete. Being early feels exactly like being wrong, right up until the moment reality catches up. While the crowd refreshes price charts, the smart money refreshes settlement infrastructure dashboards. While retail debates whether XRP is dead, custodians are quietly expanding their cold storage capacity for it. While headlines focus on what isn't happening on the chart, the most consequential financial reorganization in modern settlement history is being assembled behind the curtain. The question is not whether the price will move. The question is, who is still holding the position when it does? Make sure to like and subscribe and drop a comment below with your opinion on XRP. And watch until the end, because the final minutes reveal why July 13th could change everything. Here is what I want you to walk away with. A banking charter is not a celebration. It is the unlocking of a door. The door leads to settlement rails that move more value in a single day than most asset classes move in a year. The institution walking through that door is not just Ripple. It is the architecture of the next settlement layer of the United States financial system. And underneath it, providing the bridge liquidity, sits XRP. You are not watching a coin. You are watching the quiet rewrite of the plumbing. Price is a distraction. Structure is the reality. One side of this market is staring at candles. The other side is reading paperwork. History does not reward the loud. It rewards the ones who paid attention when the room was quiet. If you made it to the end of this briefing, comment, "I read the paperwork," below. I want to see who actually understands what is being built here. If this kind of deep structural analysis is what you came here for, subscribe so the next briefing finds you. Stay patient. Stay rational. We do not wait for the future. We plan for it.